But in general sense, we have currently 2 educational spaces at the moment. One, it's a bot, is for creating your own bot, and this Friday we will have a session on Gardens. Gardens is a conviction voting module that we use to decide part of our governance. So this is what it is at the moment, but I can share with you the Discord of the Talking Engineering Academy so you can get more into it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna DM you. I'm gonna. Well, right now I don't know anything about your community, so I will leave this one for now. But thank you for your answer.
No problem. And yeah, send me a DM. And if by any reason you forget or whatever, there is an onboarding call Thursday, 7 p.m. that you're more than welcome to join.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for hopping in. All right, everyone. Are we recording? And we have here Beer 100. Is it ready? All right. Thank you.
Yay!
And
thank you so much, Bear.
We are happy to have you here also. So the question for today is, if you will give a TED Talk, what will it be about? And this is just because of a conversation I had with Gideon the other day. But I will say that if I will have to give a TED Talk, it will be probably about film photography and how film photography it's one of the, for me, most interesting creative resources people have to care more about the process and less about the result. So I will probably do my TED Talk about film photography. How about you, Tam? What will you do it about?
Can't believe you did that. No time to think. I think it would be something around like what you don't know about leadership. Like the things that like there's things that we know about leadership, but like I don't want to say it's the secrets, but it's like the things that you don't that yeah, I don't know, it's something around this. It's like, the things of leadership that aren't so intuitive or obvious. Something like that. It'd be around that. It'd be like secrets, like and I'll pass to who's up next? Nate. What is your TED Talk going to be about?
Don't do it. What's the question? TED Talk.
Yes. If you will have to give a TED Talk, what would it be about?
Oh my goodness. It would probably be on earthquakes. Emergency preparedness and earthquakes. So it's my jam. Emergency management, baby. I don't know who hasn't gone, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a shot at Costa.
Can I have to know, do you have water bottles and guns and bullets? Like, do you have your survival kit in case you have to pick up and leave?
Oh, I do. I'm from the South. You got that was ingrained in me for some odd reason. I don't agree with all of it, but it is what it is. Survivalists.
Cool.
There you go. How about you, Costa?
Hi. So I guess I would give a TED Talk about fermented foods because I'm kind of a freak about fermentation, and people don't know how much food they could do on their own. So I'm also in the group of the survivalists. We could survive an apocalypse or a terremote or earthquake, I think. Yeah, that's it. I'll pass it to Gideon.
Thanks, Costas. I guess I would do it on community, like community saves the world, that idea. But I would wait. I would have to wait because I'm still figuring out what I'm even talking about. So I would have to wait a little bit. But that's the thing that's really got me interested right now. Yeah. So I will pass to Ben's. And Ben's, I don't know, I think you just jumped on, but basically the question was, if you were to give a TED Talk, what would you do it on?
Hey, thanks. Okay. TED Talk. I don't know. I'd probably go with climbing or something and how climbing and like relationships and trust. I think that'd be interesting. Oh,
Will you pass it?
yeah, I'll pass to I don't know who went already. Metaverde, did you go?
I did not. Oh, this is cool. I popped in late. I'm glad to get that. Okay, so if I were to do a TED Talk, it would be on one of two things. It would be on the Wood Wide Web, the mycorrhizal network that transfers information and nutrients between various plants and fungi throughout the world, basically, or on plant sentience. There are three great plant sentience labs that I know about right now. One's in Tel Aviv, one's in Berkeley, and then the best one is somewhere in Italy with Stefano Mancuso, who actually wrote up a Plants Bill of Rights, which I think is really cool. Plants are sentient. They do they do prefer their own family, and that's it, I guess. I don't need to take up the whole meeting waxing eloquent about plants being smart. I'm not sure who to pass it to, so I think Eduardo, you're in charge of the meeting. Will you do it? Do the passing?
For sure. Thank you, Metaverde.
Yeah, thank
And I
you.
pass it on to Enti.
Thanks. Uh, uh, I think I'll probably talk about how do generalists can succeed in a specialized world. That's something I've been looking up into. I've been pretty interested in that because I feel like I'm not really specialized in anything or in a lot of stuff. And that's sort of what I've been trying to do my whole life, just sort of making it without knowing, without being the best at something. And I think a lot of people could identify with that and could uh, find that helpful. And I think I'll pass it on. I think while I be is left, I'm there.
Yes. Vi, would you like to go?
Yes, I'm unsure about the topic, but one thing that I would like to talk about would be like propagating a culture of, open source and, the open source ideology inside schools and boot camps. And, I'm still figuring out some aspects of it, like especially the finance aspects. I'm still going through all the data common stack and all the work common stack is doing, but hopefully something comes out of this once the finance part is, and we have like a stable way to align incentives for this. I think it's like really great if you could get more people educated about this, like uh because I meet a lot of people that want to capitalize and they want to make businesses, and they're like ready to uh let their ethics go to waste, but they personally don't want to do that, but they're really motivated about being something, so they don't do it. So it would be interesting if some kind of models pop up that enable them to have basically both of these things, or be content with like uh, money as a means rather than an end, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I'll pass it to, I think everyone's gone. Uh,
Beer 100 is
Beer,
missing.
yeah, Beer and Red is left.
Hi. Thank you so much, Beer 100. And talking about good design, Gideon, would you like to talk us about your good design on the Figma document that you created? I'm gonna provide feedback in the meantime. I'm sharing the screen. So we have been there was this document called TEC and its people that Gideon worked on, and one of the main key points that we decided to sort of dive in. It's the engagement and workflows of that document. And so the last week, Gideon has taken on this task to develop this kind of visualization and put it down to the ground, the things that we have created, done, or want to do. So Gideon, would you like to take care on explaining this document?
Sure. Thanks, Eduardo. So can everybody see this document at this point? Yeah. I'm flipping over to that screen, so I can't. A couple things I was thinking that would be good to do today. One is just kind of do a quick overview of what I was setting out to do with these documents. And then two would be to dive into just like a couple of new ideas they're based on things that we've been talking about actually in these meetings, but I've tried to push them a little bit further, and so now would be a great time to get some feedback. So the first thing to do would be to just kind of look at this over there. Right now there are three types of pages here. This is the overview we're looking at right now. So this would be what I'm suggesting are kind of the four basic clusters of workflows that Communitas either does right now, in this case, like looking at this column, or are things that we're starting to move into, which is, so the first one is Newcomer Onboarding. We've been doing that, and actually we've been doing a really good job of that. So the second one that we're starting to move more into right now is this kind of Newcomer Engagement. So how do we start to kind of like connect people better with the working groups in a more formalized set of processes? And then this third column is the one that is actually the furthest out. But that's like, what role does Communitas play, if any, in helping the working groups to engage their members and then also help those members to develop over time? And how might we ensure some consistency across the whole community to make sure that what's happening in those working groups is really resonant with the overall vibe, cultural vibe of TEC. And the fourth column would be something kind of in between in terms of timing, which would be community development. And we're doing some of that now, which is like tools and processes. So if I a lot of the tools you're doing kind of fit in this bucket, which is like, processes that we're building out right now to support the community and engagement and onboarding, but also specific tools. I'm not going to go into all the details. It's basically here, like, what are the high-level goals, who's involved in each of these things, and then what are some of the tools. So this is kind of the overview. And then for each one of those areas, so for each one of these things here on this first page, welcoming, explaining, orienting, I'm envisioning that there will be like a column, a dedicated column. So the only one that is done right now is the stuff that, and this is still rough, but is the work around the welcoming workflows, right? And so what I try to do here is, before getting into actual workflows, take a step back and say, oh, okay, well, what are the actual goals that we're setting out to do? How would we know what the outcomes we want, what those should be, and in that might be framed in terms of like a specific question that we survey people on, and then just some overall values that we want to bear in mind as we're pulling together these the tools and processes to accomplish these goals, the methods, the roles, who's involved, and then just some notes that kind of like help to explain it. And then, so for each one of these buckets, each one of these columns, you can click through and it'll take you to a more detailed workflows. And I realized personally that I didn't even understand until I talked with Eduardo last week. He was nice enough to just sit down with me and kind of walk me through what we, how things actually work. And I understand. After doing that, I realized that I had some fundamental misunderstandings about some of the timing of steps and things like that. So it's really useful, I think, to actually lay out these kind of workflows. And I'm not saying that these are accurate yet. So these haven't gone through any kind of vetting from Eduardo or, and I think Costa, as you're getting into ramping up on some of the stuff that you're doing, I think it'd be really interesting to have you take a look at this and ground truth it as well. So I'll stop right here and just open it up for feedback at this level.
The document, it's on the agenda. I think if you can share it on the text channel, just in case other folks get lost getting to the agenda, and then I will open the floor to anyone else who wants to comment on this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
Okay, well, I'll add something. So first of all, it was so pleasant to see because it is really sort of creating a lot of clarity around some of the processes that that are happening, but it's not. It's never as easy to understand in written form as it is to understand in this visual form. So I thought it was really, really great that we're moving in this direction. I think the only comment I left was about the working group development, and I saw your messages back, and it makes a lot of sense. I see where you're going with it, and I can see a potential role for Communitas as a kind of internal consulting and service support. I think of all of these, this is the one that maybe we're not doing yet. The other three, I think we have a better, clear understanding of what needs to be done, and maybe we just need to cement and record document some of the processes that we're already doing. And then I think that one's sort of like the next one to tackle, and I do like it now that I had a hunch for what it would be, but I like it now that I understand it better. And then I think even the onboarding one, I think not just for us, but for the community to see so clearly what the goals are and what the outcomes we're looking for is really helpful for the community too. I really like all of this. I like where it's going. I think this is going to end up being, one of the most important pieces that come out of Communitas for bringing clarity around our processes.
Yeah, and also what I mentioned time today is I felt that this is something that any other organization who wants to provide this human level or this kind of onboarding can just sort of imitate, because it's a process that seems we can just replace the names and just put another name and it will still make sense. And I feel that's something really, really important, because I sense a component of universality on this kind of diagram that I really enjoy. The only comment that I had is to change it to TEC colors. that was the other feedback that I thought about. And I've also Vi, who has been Vi has been working with me with deploying the onboarding process on TEC Academy. I think Vi, you will also enjoy this diagram to take a look at it, because I think you also have a different perspective or you have a perspective about onboarding coming from the technical part, I think, and I think it will be really helpful to have your feedback on this. I don't know if you have had time to see the document, Vi.
Yeah, I didn't get time to see it in detail, but I've seen the overview, and it looks interesting to me. Like the first diagram, that's like the user flow, like the first 15 minutes, and then day one. That diagram that you shared, I think it would be really interesting, how this progresses as we go forward. I think some time ago we had like a discussion about how much gamification can we put into this process. And I think like the general consensus, or at least what I gathered away from the discussion, was that we'd want some form of not minimal, moderate gamification for a lot of things. Uh, and I think that it's really interesting if like we can also have some form of like quests of sorts inside this area. Uh, about like syncing data with HubSpot, I've definitely been thinking about that, and it is an interesting prospect. But I think like we might need to uh, consult the community before doing that. Because the way HubSpot works is that it tracks a lot of things. It's a really it's like a tracker in the traditional sense of the word. Like I also think like it does cross website tracking if you have like HubSpot on all of the DC websites and all of the forms. So I don't know. Maybe we can discuss about that later, but this diagram looks really interesting to me. Can you just turn over to the other one that you were showing before this? No, the one, yeah, this one. Yeah, this workflows. Your component development, community development. This looks very neat. Uh, yeah, it covers a lot of the areas, and yeah, I think this would be an interesting model to use and build the tooling upon. And since the T Academy is also like looking into this stuff, like right now they're just looking into the having like primary form of onboarding, but they're definitely interested in more scaled approaches and features. So I think we can probably roll this into the whole onboarding experience. Uh, yeah, the project can scale up and do a lot of things, I believe. That's pretty much it. I haven't looked at it in great detail, so I don't have any other thoughts.
Thank you, Vi.
Can I actually reverse? Sorry, Nate, you wanted to say something? I'll just go in quickly though. Can I just reverse this and say, Gideon, what do you need from me or anyone else in the Communitas? How can we support you in building this out further?
Yeah. So thank you, and thanks for all the feedback. And Vi, actually, I was thinking about you specifically as I was doing some of these diagrams. I was like, oh, what would Vi think about this? Would he just laugh at this, or like? So I'm glad that it, at least initially, it looks interesting. And there are a bunch of questions that were coming out. They're kind of like technical questions. So that's one thing. As this goes further, I'll see if I can just like clump the questions for you, so I'm not pinging you with like all kinds of little questions. But so that's one thing. And then Tam, to answer your question, I think what's happening is that as I'm pushing forward with this, I'm kind of seeing my role here as taking the conversations that I've been hearing and then distilling that and then kind of asking the next logical questions, right? So I'm trying to kind of like put that down into a form like this that can then be useful for teeing up some new questions. So like as an example today, I have 3 questions that I think would be great to get some feedback from everybody on. And maybe, actually the way that we even did this week, which is, I first asked Eduardo about that, like, what do you think about this? And then he kind of like jams with you on that to get some high level. And then we take it to the group, just like we've done actually today. And we can practice with these 3 questions today to see how it works. But then we can just kind of like iterate, every week, just try to keep pushing forward a little bit, or maybe every other week. I don't know what the timing is. Does that make sense? Should I dive into those questions?
before Nate wanted to say something, so I want to give him the floor before the questions.
So yeah, I think it's awesome work. These charts are very like it always shocks me when I see visual representations and how much better I grasp things sometimes. So thank you for doing this. One of the things that I wanted to mention, especially in that second column, the newcomer engagement. One of the things that I think I've observed that we kind of have issues with is distinguishing between newcomers who are just kind of popping their head in just to check things out versus newcomers who are actually ready to commit to contributing. Having that kind of verbal or willingness or that straightforward commitment by newcomers to say, hey, I'm ready to contribute. What can I do to get ready? And having them be able to be onboarded and get a GitHub. It still shocks me to see how many people who don't have a GitHub account that are actively trying to contribute. And I think that is a huge issue. So like having these types of onboarding things for people who have verbally committed to contributing right away is something that I think we should include within that newcomer engagement section, versus somebody who's just like, hey, I'm just poking my head in just to learn a little bit more. I think we should treat those two differently.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because we took like an hour to talk about this on Friday regarding the
Apologies.
newcomer, the member. No. It's a very accurate question, and it was a debate in our conversation with Gideon, because I felt, and I think we came out with this idea of, and then you will just explain Gideon about for example, the community offering, which is a form of commitment. Or we were talking about if a newcomer, you are a newcomer, then you become a new member, then you become a member of the TC. So it's like this kind of layers that we add to for people to have clear roles and expectations bounded to that. But yeah, so Gideon, go ahead.
No, it's great. It's like, it's almost like somebody paid you money, Nate, to tee that up before we dive into this, because it's exactly actually the reason that we got into this question was because I had in there like some number about percentage of people who feel that they understand the TEC and the percentage of people who feel they were warmly welcomed. And Eduardo pointed out that's like, well, yeah, actually there are a lot of people who just come to the server and they have their DMs closed for a variety of reasons. They don't fill out the survey, right? And so I was just like, God, that doesn't, something's not right. We can't like ruin our numbers. And I don't mean it in that sense, but I mean, it's like, if we kill ourselves trying to like get everybody who accidentally lands on our server to go through a process, that's not sustainable. So where we ended up was that actually there's like a kind of a minimum maybe set of things that somebody needs to do to be considered to be differentiated from just a newcomer. Okay, so there's 4 terms. One is just like a visitor. That's somebody who comes and they haven't even been validated as a human. Once they're validated as a human, then they get the role of newcomer. This is just what we're proposing. This is just a placeholder, right? But they would become a newcomer, and then there would be kind of 3 things that we would ask them to do, 3 buckets. One is that they, we would welcome all newcomers, okay? But in order to become a new member, the person has to understand the TEC, what it is and what it's about. It's some minimum threshold, right? And they have to be oriented, right? So they have to understand how things work here, what the culture is, and that kind of stuff. And then the third thing that we're proposing is that they make some type of an offering, some type of a contribution. And this kind of goes to some of the stuff we were talking about a couple weeks ago, right? Which is that, this is kind of not a regular economy. Maybe it's more like a gift economy. And the best way for a gift economy is that you offer first, right? You give first and then you receive. And so And it's also kind of the whole idea of like a stake, like stakeholders, right? That you proof of stake. So there's some ideas, and I'm gonna come back to this in a sec. Just what this idea of an offering, because there's two other things I want to talk about first, because I think it'll make things more clear. But that kind of differentiation of different levels of people starting into the community, does that make sense to people?
Yeah, I guess it's just, I guess the question is what is the form of that offering, and is simply reading the Git book and signing up for all the platforms and a good enough offering for that type of entry.
No, we are not so boring, Nate. It will be different. So we had this idea, very simple minimum threshold of shows, like pick a bunch of YouTube videos or pick a bunch of Medium articles or Gideon or Gitbook areas that we know will provide a certain level of knowledge about the TEC, and then in a public channel on the Discord, make people do whatever interpretation they want to do about that list of things. It could be a song, it could be a video, it could be whatever it is, whatever they want to do. So that would be sort of a way for them to get access to the knowledge of what is a TEC, and we sort of have a proof of commitment, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
Can I just can I piggyback on that just a sec, just to clarify some or add a little bit on? So this idea of how do we get some type of offering from people to show that they are committed and that they're very interested. This isn't just some kind of flyby thing. And how do we do it in a way that doesn't create a whole bunch of work for the Communitas guides, right, in the process, or forces us to come up with new things every time. So we wanted like a universal kind of offering that everybody could do. And so the idea would be after the person has read up on the TEC and read up a bit on token engineering, and then has been oriented. So they have things like they have a GitHub, they have the various accounts and things like that set up. Then what we do is maybe give them like 3 or 4 prompts. So the prompts might be, what is your vision for the future of token engineering? How would you explain token engineering to your grandparents? Or why is it that you are why are you excited about the token engineering commons, right? To just give them like 3 or 4 different prompts, they can do whichever of those prompts, captures their imagination. And then the thing that they create could be like a short article, like a little essay. It could be a poem. It could be a song. It could be a video. It could be a drawing. It could be whatever they want. But that we would have a place on the TEC Discord channel where, you could just imagine over time that this thing starts to grow. It becomes this like really beautiful place where people have like a very soulful way to express themselves, right? So we get to see who these people really are as they're coming into the community. It's not asking too much of them. Like, this isn't like, hey, take 2 weeks and do this. It's like, no, take a couple hours and please go do your best and then come back to it. And, it's not like a super serious thing, but it's a genuine thing. So that was kind of the thing that we were playing around with.
I think that's really interesting. I think, if there was an example of it and I saw other people do it, I would probably participate. Getting that started, however, might be a bit of a reach because it might seem like work for not without purpose almost. If I were the first one to do that, I'd be kind of hesitant. I'd be like, I'm good. Can I make this commitment without having to write a poem or a song or an article? And so I guess that would be, would it be completely opt-in type of thing?
I don't know. This is part of what we're talking about. I would suggest not. I would suggest that maybe what we do is, if we go down a path like this, that it becomes just kind of like something that you do, and like, don't make too big of a deal. Like, don't. I think the key is like, don't turn this into something that's super serious, because then it's not fun, right? Like, keep it light, keep it fun. But I don't know. I'm going to shut up now because I want to hear what other people say.
I'm going to throw some ideas just around the offering because I really like this idea. I like it because it's a low bar to entry. You know, you can share whatever it is that you're inspired to share, and it doesn't need to be something that you necessarily put 40 hours of work into. And I think that there's many people who join our community who would find this more more easy to do than others. And I think that there's a few things that we can use to incentivize people to do an offering. A co-op, again, it could be like one of the activities that you need to do to earn this. Your transition from newcomer to member. Maybe it's one of those things that you need to check off the box to become. Or to earn a co-op or something like this, or maybe there's a offering co-op, exclusively for that offering. And I like how creative it is actually, because there's no real constraints around what you're offering. It's sort of this very personal, intrinsic motivation of the person in the community. And I actually really like how personal and how creative it is. And I don't know about making it required or not, but I know we could certainly incentivize it. And I also think there's going to be I think there's just going to be some interesting creative perspectives on the TEC for people in our community, and that's something that we'll all benefit from, actually.
I would just say, answering Nate's question, that I will suggest the Steward will be the first ones to do so as a fun thing. Take your time. Just the Stewards of the TEC will be the first to do this offering as just as a fun thing, whatever time they can commit to it and whatever comes as a result of that. And I think that will incentivize other users to do it, or at least we will have some on that channel filled. Bye. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I would. So that sounds like a really great idea, and I could definitely see it working. My only concern is like if we're doing this in a Discord channel, it's gonna start becoming like the coordination data. Like the Discord feeds moves too fast. So eventually whoever's going through it, they still have to do a lot of work to go through it. So like could we somehow make this into like a form or something? A Google form or something of the sort, and we can. I think some while ago there was something like a feedback form or something. I don't know, that idea popped up a few months ago or somewhere down the line. I don't know about like making a feedback form where there's like, after people have been a part of the community for a while, they can give their outlook of the community and talk about things they like and not like. Maybe this could be included in that somehow. But then that also reduces the social aspect that Gideon talked about. Like, this is like a fun exercise that people can do. Maybe it can be a sort of like a cultural thing that we do in the lounge or some other call. I don't know. Uh,
Thank you, Vi. And I want to open the floor to the folks, like Enti. Enti, do you have any idea, or do you like it? Do you dislike it? Anything you would like to share regarding this?
Yeah, I think overall it sounds really good. It's a really that approach. And I like what you said about stewards or other community members being an example to those kinds of activities. Um, because I think uh, it's like for probably for most of the people, uh, the intrinsic motivation to do something comes from seeing others sort of enjoying it and seeing like maybe examples because because it may sound too complex or like a relatively heavy task to do. But if I see someone just writing 2 lines or something and getting sort of cherries for that, I may do that as well. I don't think I have much to say other than that. It looks really good.
All right. Someone else would like to say something regarding this? 5, 4.
Yeah,
Yes, Costa.
maybe I'm deviating a bit. I'm not that much of a creative person, but I remember that at uni we used to do Reader's Digest sessions, which were like afternoon after class sessions where each person would pick like an article they were interested in. Like, for example, if I don't know what conviction voting is, I would pick an article about it, and then I would have the floor for 5-10 minutes to just talk about what I learned. There was no marks, no pressure. Like, it just was just an input that everyone gave, and all of the group learned something. That could be maybe an idea, like for a call to gather like newcomers and then teaching each other something new.
I'm going to add that as one of the suggested offerings. Just like, what did you learn through the orientation process? How would you summarize it, or something like that? I think that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Testa, you would like to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say another thing that we in Communitas can do to help is, I don't know if you know this exercise, the aliens have landed, and you need to communicate to them by using drawings. And we did this exercise in Common Stack once, and it was like really interesting to see what people would draw about how they would communicate the TEC if they could only use pictures. So we could also sort of host these sessions where these workshops where we can help facilitate some sort of creative output, in a non-traditional thinking way. So I think that there's also something we could do there.
Yeah, I really like this idea of also having a call where you will either foster the creation of these things or you will share it. In the meantime, someone else is creating it. I think it's a social component, that foster engagement, that is not only on approval and appraisal, but also, hey, I value you, so I give you this time for you to talk about it if you feel like. And also, it's a really nice way, Tam, I feel, to have a Q&A kind of thing, because if the questions are about the TEC, there will be questions people will have in order to draw or to create the poems, and we could answer the questions on the spot by having a call about it. But it will be a non-traditional, FAQ, live FAQ, AMA kind of session, because it will be more like, hey, I'm drawing this and I have these questions, and then I can answer you that on the spot. So I think it could be very interesting to explore that. Back to you, Gideon.
This is great. It's great feedback. Okay, I'm going to dive into the next two questions there that I think are a little bit less complex. One of the things that I was observing was that by breaking, so let me go back to this document real quick. By breaking the onboarding process into these kind of 3 chunks, one is welcoming, one is understanding, and one is orienting, suddenly it occurred to me that we could maybe offload some of the work from the guides. And because welcoming, if you really think about, you don't need to know a whole bunch about the TEC and be an expert on the TEC to be a warm welcome, like to be somebody who gives somebody a warm, genuine human welcome. So so the thinking was that maybe what we start to do over time is have this new role, which I'm just tentatively calling a welcomer, and their job. So this would be an introductory job for Communitas, right? An introductory role that somebody could jump into after not being here very long. And in a way, this could be part of like a kind of a show of commitment and maybe a temporary job. Like it could be something that somebody does for a month or two and then they move on. But the idea would be that there would be a set of tasks that they would do. The most important of which would be when somebody lands in TEC, the very next day you get somebody giving them, like calling them out individually and saying, hey, Rebecca or whoever, welcome to the community. And in that flow chart, you'll see that there's like some very specific things I won't go into here, but that will help us to kind of increase the response rate of the survey. And eventually when we have the interest selection emoticon thing, boost the response rate for that and a bunch of other things, but without kind of gumming up the works, without forcing too much work on all of the guides. And in a way, this kind of goes to the thing that you were talking about, Vi, too, which is, especially if we do an offering, we would need to check to see whether somebody's actually done it, right? And so you don't want the guides having to like do all of that work of tracking and things like that. So this would be kind of like an introductory job. And it could be something that people just do temporarily, or it could be the stepping stone to becoming a guide, right? It becomes like the recruiting ground for future guides. So, and also last thing I'll say about this is that I feel like for us to demonstrate to the other working groups what a nice entry-level role is as like the beginnings of an engagement pyramid. So there's not a whole bunch of training that's required, and it's something somebody can come in and do pretty easily, and then move on. So I will be quiet for a second. Hear some feedback on that.
So the first thing it made me think of, so I also really like this idea, sort of an entry point, a non-committal entry point, a way for someone in our community to explore working with the Communitas working group. And as well, going back to this, this working group, and its development, but like more like helping other, like modeling some structures that other working groups can also use to create these that engagement ladders that you shared. The one that Transparency has is like, come in and record. You need no background experience. You need no like every working group should have this, like, you could start this tomorrow. Here's a small guide for what the actual tasks are that you have to do, and they're very autonomous and anyone could do them. I really like how much thought you've put into this, and there's that's it. I just really like how much thought you've put into this, and that there's this possibility for someone to start tomorrow with something that is impactful for the Communitas working group. That'll help the Communitas working group. And then it can grow into something else, or it's something that somebody can just walk away from without having a negative impact on the Communitas working group. So it's a way for somebody to sort of try it out. And I like that path a lot.
Hello, Libby. We are sharing a document that it's on the Communitas text channel in case you want to take a look at it. We are going through basically a proposal that Gideon has made regarding possible workflows and regarding the user journey. Hello, Paul in Albuquerque. That's a really nice name and a really nice emoticon. You are on the Communitas weekly meeting. It's a working group dedicated to community building. Would you like to introduce briefly yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Paul Chavez. I am in Albuquerque, as the name says there. That's in New Mexico, United States. And I would love to listen in and see how I could be helpful. I couldn't be more excited about the state of affairs with DAOs and community building. I'm the founder and executive director of a 501c3 opioid treatment program that believes that it's ripe for disruption, substance use and mental health. So 95% of my clients are homeless, and we're one of the only 501c3s addressing substance use disorder in the country. And I'm trying to bring Web3 tools and new structures to the legacy system.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Paul. And we have orientation calls every Thursdays, 7 p.m. in case you want to hop into that. And if that doesn't fit your schedule, we also provide one-on-ones, and we can help you to see how we can match intentions. I will pass it on now the word to ViViV, who wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think something along with the offering mechanism, something we can have in parallel can be some form of tracking statistics and just having some form of threshold for saying if someone is active or not. It can be, the number of calls they're attending in a day, the amount of code or comments they're pushing on GitHub or ZenHub, the amount of posts they're making on the forum. You can track all these metrics and somehow sum up like an engagement score of sorts. And there's still some decision needed on what kind of metrics we are desirable as like an active contributor, but I think that can also give us a lot of insight. Because if someone is like attending 6 calls every day, every for like 2-3 weeks, and they're still continuing to do that, then that means they're probably very excited to become a contributor, or at least they're interested in the TC to a very large extent. So maybe we can do some form of profiling based on that data, if that might be desirable. And then with the mechanism offering, it becomes like a foolproof way of finding out like which people are the ones that we need to spend more time onboarding, or trying to get them into more work streams.
Thank you, Vi. Levi, I don't know if you are lost on on the meeting. Would you like to clarification on anything that has been mentioned in the past 5 minutes?
Thank you. No, I'm just taking a look, just observing. Thank you. It looks really good.
Okay. And all right, we have time for one more comment. If no, someone else wants to comment on what he mentioned. Yes, Santi, go ahead.
Um, my comment may be more helpful on like on another moment. I think it's probably too early, but I guess I'll just put that out. I really like the idea. I think it reminds me of what we had at One Hive. Um, so when I entered, they've got this support role that was sort of a rotating role. It was this nice entry level point for pretty much anyone, and so you sort of got onboarded into the server and you interacted a bit, and I think it was every 2 weeks or every month they would try to get someone new into the role and into the rotation, um, which at least for the time was seemed to be pretty good. I don't really have I guess precise numbers about that, because unfortunately some of those things weren't really as formal as are here in One Hive. But I guess my comment is on the risks of doing that, or like how do you prevent such dynamic from breaking up? Because like in our particular case, what happened was we had this period with a lot of engagement, and all of a sudden that changed, and so that left a lot of concerns and holes into that dynamic because we didn't have enough people to put into the rotation, but also there wasn't a next step for the people in support, and so the people at the support role were receiving a small budget, a small payment to operate, and so like first of all, you don't get more people involved, and then uh, what do you do with the people that committed to spend some time on supporting, but then they cannot move on, but they have to live up their role in the group because the dynamic is to rotate, and so you lose your you lose your well, like you lose the role, but you also lose the money you're earning, sort of like to speak. And then like, where do you go next? In the case of the TC, if that happens, uh, how would we expect to get people sort of engaged in those dynamics? Because if I have to commit a certain amount of time for just 1 week, I still have to to live this whole year and to look for something more stable in that regard. And I think that's probably something to take to consider while developing such dynamics.
Thank you so much, Auntie. We are a little bit on top of the hour, so I will suggest that if anyone has any question or any suggestion regarding this document, you can comment it async either on the document or in the text channel. It will be ideal in the text channel so everyone can sort of feedback on it. Um, Before we go, I want to highlight certain things that was observed this week on the onboarding data of people. There are some interesting folks who joined the server. There is one person who came as a proposal on Aragon DAO. There is another one who was recommended through Cosmos Validators. Cosmos is one of the blockchains. A podcast where Shui was mentioned, and another one who says through a friend of mine who is the architect over at Banker. So very interesting kind of profiling of people who just joined the server. We will welcome them appropriately, hopefully, this week or today or tomorrow. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining here today. I wanna open if anyone else have something to say before we go. Five.
Just did I miss the update on Calendly? And can we start promoting the URL for it?
Yes, so the Calendly we will have to pay it, so we have to sort that out. Just
Okay.
that.
I had
Yes,
a quick
Libby.
comment about the how we could integrate. I just had a time to read now. How we could integrate the praise onboarding to this onboarding journey. Now that we have that command that people need to verify, both to receive praise and to dish praise, and that also like leads them to the quantification with one extra step if they want to be a quantifier. So that would be cool to have that somewhere.
Louis, can I follow? I'm not sure I'm following that all the way, but can I follow up with you on that?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that we might want to keep the onboarding slightly separate, at least on the project side of view. I think like praise wouldn't like to depend on the onboarding system. So one kind of thing we can do is like roll this inside the onboarding system where there's like an optional step that just tells people how they can uh, sign up for rewards, and then that would lead them to the praise onboarding and the source credit onboarding. Uh, which are two different processes. It does create some form of like different complexities because then we have like people that go through the onboarding bots onboarding that is planned on by the Communitas group, and then they have to also go through the reward system onboarding, and that too in like two different directions, praise, and then they have to go with source code. So that might be confusing. Maybe we can spec that out a little bit. It would be interesting to have this conversation with like someone actively involved in designing plays, maybe Christopher, and then people from Communitas. So we have like a laid out process for the same, because I think somewhere down the like reward system would also have to think about how they're going to manage two different onboarding systems inside their own like process, which is the source grid onboarding and the base onboarding. So that was interesting. Since we're running out of time, so.
Thank you, Vad. And all right, with that note, we will close the meeting today. Thank you so much, everyone who joined today. There's a lot of things to talk async, so please, Paul and Shardul, if you feel lost with this conversation, please don't hesitate to reach us out to any clarification that is needed or any more information that you would like to know. We are here to support you. So, and for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to see you next Monday. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
thanks, everyone.